How is it possible to make the best-selling 12-inch single in history and still lose money on every copy sold? Well, in this video, we're talking about Blue Monday, New Order's 1983 smash hit that helped launch their new approach and separate them from the shadow that was Joy Division. So, buckle in, because this story is fascinating. And as always, if you love rock history like me, please do subscribe to the channel and join our pack. So I think nearly everyone recognises this tune, even if they couldn't name it. It's that simple drum and synth intro. It's practically tattooed into music history. Because, despite all the odds, this song is the best-selling 12-inch single ever. But what do I mean when I say despite the odds? Well, New Order overcame a risky change to their sound, technical disasters and financial and business idiocy, but still came out on top with this one. Seriously, this single didn't even have the name of the track or the band on its cover. So how on earth did they do it? Firstly, you can't mention New Order without, of course, mentioning Joy Division. New Order was made up of the surviving members of Joy Division after the tragic suicide of singer Ian Curtis. Although Gillian Gilbert, who later joined as a keyboardist and guitarist, wasn't in Joy Division, of course. Now, they were always going to be up against it after Joy Division, simply because of how loved they were with that band. Anyway, the band felt an impulse to distance themselves from Joy Division and become a different entity. So they took a reasonable step and changed up the musical approach. And not just a little bit. They embraced electronic elements wholeheartedly, using drum machines, synthesizers, samplers, and all sorts of space-age tech, moving away from post-punk and decidedly towards a sort of synth-poppy electronic rock blend. In fact, there are hardly any traditional instruments in the recording of Blue Monday, just some bass guitar elements and some guitar parts, and even those are difficult to hear. The rest is programmed. More on that in a minute. The first album, Movement in '81, was a transitional one, somewhere between the old and new. With this one, they really decided to go in a different direction. For a start, it's 7 minutes long, and they purposefully used the 12-inch format as a way to target club DJs, not the general public. 12-inch was the format favoured by DJs. Some believed it provided better sound quality, and being bigger could simply have more music on it. And it wasn't as popular on the radio compared to shorter tracks at the time, which was another risky call, but one that definitely paid off. Clearly, they had a vision for this song. They wanted people dancing to it in clubs, not necessarily listening to it in the car. It was unusual, but also pioneering. It was a big moment in the crossover between rock and electronica in club music at the time. It's regarded as a crucial link between the disco of the 70s and the dance music boom of the late 80s. It helped bridge the gap between dance music and mainstream audiences. But how did they record this thing? Well, as it turns out, not easily. For a start, they were learning to use and record the new equipment on the fly. It was all very DIY, and if something went wrong, which it invariably did as they were figuring stuff out, it was pure chaos. For example, the main bass line was programmed using a synthesizer. You'd enter your notes, hit a button, and off it went. The synthesizer, though, had no memory and a habit of crashing. So every time it did crash, the whole lot was lost, and they'd have to program the whole track again. This cost them hours of effort, not to mention studio time, which is expensive, and this was a common theme. The band was so determined to do things in an analog, organic way, but it kept tripping them up. They didn't have a MIDI system, which would have kept things organised and in time much easier. Instead, they had an old-school mixer with a limited number of tracks, so often things had to be recorded over the top of others, and if someone hit the wrong track or got confused, things were lost, and that track had to be redone completely. Producer Michael Johnson has admitted they even left some mistakes in the final version. I inadvertently wiped the speech synthesizer while we were recording something else. He wasn't very happy about it, but couldn't be asked to start again. I don't know if he's ever forgiven me. According to him, the song was originally going to have no live instruments at all, and not even lyrics. It was an idea for a piece to play as an encore at gigs. Press a button, the music would start, and then they could go to the bar or get in the car and clear off. He goes on to say he doesn't recall this, but apparently it was his idea to put real bass on it, and then it started morphing into a real song. Vocals were added, and things just started snowballing.
I thought I heard you speak. Tell me, how do I feel? Tell me now, how should I feel?
They borrowed heavily from electronica leaders at the time, Kraftwerk. Now, going back to the errors that got left in, the signature synth melody is actually a tiny bit out of time, and that's because of another DIY production hiccup. It was my job to program the entire song from beginning to end, which had to be done manually, by inputting every note. I had the sequence all written down on loads of A4 paper, sellotaped together the length of the recording studio, like a huge knitting pattern, but I accidentally left a note out, which skewed the melody. The band decided it added a cool robotic element, and kept it in. Funnily enough, it ended up being one of the most loved parts of the song. A quick note though, some sources say that it was actually Gillian Gilbert, not Peter Hook, who was responsible for that, but whoever really did it, it turned out to be an inadvertent stroke of genius. But these technical problems even carried over to the live performance of the song, something that was never meant to happen. In March 1983, they played a famously out-of-time rendition of Blue Monday on Top of the Pops. It eventually sold 1.6 million copies in the UK and over 3 million worldwide. It was a top 10 hit in several countries, but incredibly, they lost money on every pressing of the single. And that's all because of the sleeve design. It was created by Peter Saville, a partner of Factory Records, New Order's label. The label's ethos was very much design over economics, and this sleeve epitomised that. It was die-cut to look like a floppy disk. Peter Saville was inspired by the band's use of digital tech and the role of the floppy disk within that. And that process comes with quite a high cost when you factor in the materials, equipment and labour involved in die cutting. Remember when I said it didn't have any name on it? Well, that's not technically true. You just had to decode it first. See, while Blue Monday didn't appear on the original track list of the album Power, Corruption and Lies, it was certainly from the same sessions, and was indeed linked to that album. On the back of the album is this wheel. This is actually the key to the code. Each coloured block represents a letter or number. When we apply it to the Blue Monday single cover, it reads FAC 73, that's the catalogue number for Factory Records, Blue Monday, and The Beach, which is the B-side, and then New Order. Printing that many colours also had a high cost associated with it. And remember, this was a 12-inch single, not a 7-inch, so it required more material and printing than a regular single. Reports of just how much money was lost ranges from 2p to £1 per single sold, but the important thing is, it stopped any profit being generated from this original version. No one had factored in the economics behind it. Or they had factored it in, but decided creativity was more important in this situation. Fascinating, isn't it? Despite all of that, the single went on to become the best-selling 12-inch single of all time, which, when you take everything into account, shouldn't have really happened. Similar, in a way, to Good Vibrations by the Beach Boys. That song also broke a bunch of rules and shouldn't really have been a hit, but the late, great Brian Wilson made sure it was. The full story behind that one is over there.